Hey guys, it's me, Kevin, and as talks ramp up about the AFL season resuming, so does me coming back to this channel. After a 3-week absence, I am finally back on this channel and I will be making some more content for you guys in the next few weeks. And obviously I'll start the tipping series as soon as that the AFL starts up again. So today I'm going to be making a video not on the AFL season itself for 2020, but more of a video regarding on the AFL Draft and the lower tier and development competitions. First of all, I'm going to be talking about the AFL Draft, as there have been a lot of talks about whether the draft age should be raised to 19 or if it should stay at 18, and even if the draft should be held this year or this off-season, because it's not going to be held this year, or maybe. I'm not entirely sure about when it would be held. It might actually be held January next year. I had an article about that. But I think it should be held this off-season in a condensed format, so we only have 2 rounds, and also the future 3rd and 4th round picks from last year should carry over to 2021, not this year. And I honestly think the first 2 rounds should go to 2021 as round, but if it goes to 2020, then it should be alright. And basically the draft order, basically normal drafting and trading rules, but only 2 rounds, I think would be alright. As for the draft age itself, I think whilst it should be recommended to not draft at the age of 18 and nominate for the draft at 19, if you're a really good player like Matt Rounder, Anderson, those kind of players, then you can draft, nominate for the draft at the age of 18. I think that the best players should be able to draft at 18. Whilst those that aren't as good should have another year in the under-19s competition for another year of development, and then nominate for the draft again. And yes, I am talking about an under-19s competition. Let me get to how that will work. I think there should be a reform to the under-18s, or rather under-19s competition. Right now we have like a 13-team NAB league competition with 5 academy clubs that play friendlies, and then we've got other development leagues in South Australia and West Australia. I think the SANFL under-18s can remain untouched, the Waffle pretty much untouched, but merge. I'm going to make it controversial, but merge South Fremantle and East Fremantle. I'll get to why in a minute. Well, in about 5 or 10 minutes, I'll get to it why in the second tier section, okay? But anyway, so have an 8-league competition in South Australia and WA, and actually, how about 6 8-team competitions across the country? 1 in WA, 1 in South Australia, a new under-18s competition in Queensland and New South Wales involving 8 teams each, and 2 of them in Victoria, 1 of them in Melbourne, and 1 of them around the countryside of Victoria. As for Tasmania, well, they would play in the Victorian Country League, and Northern Territory can play in Queensland's league. So, how would these development leagues look like? So, first let's head off to the Melbourne Football League. It would have Box Hill, Calder, Dandenong, Port Melbourne, Preston, Sandringham, Werribee and Williamstown. As for Country Victoria Football League, it would have Albury, even though it's in New South Wales, but it's on the border, so whatever. So, Albury, Ballarat, Bendigo, Geelong, Gippsland, Hume, Mildura and Tasmania. For New South Wales Football League, I would have Blacktown, Bankstown, Canberra, Inner West, Newcastle, North Sydney, St George and South Sydney. As for the Queensland Football League, I'd have Aspley, Ipswich, Logan, Moreton Bay, Northern Territory, Redland, Southport and the Sunshine Coast. So those would be the 4 new leagues. SANFL, Waffle, it's pretty much the same. Glenelg, North Adelaide, Norwood, Prospect, South Adelaide, Sturt, West Adelaide and West Torrens, it's the same as at the moment. And the Waffle, Claremont, East Perth, Joondalup, which is West Perth. I think they should rename to Joondalup. I would like to see that. Peel Thunder, Perth, South Fremantle, Subiaco and Swan. And by the way, with South Fremantle, that would be the South Fremantle Sharks. Just making that clear. In addition, the 30 best players from each league will represent their league or state in the Under-19s Carnival. Each team will play each other once, and the top 2 teams will play off in a grand final. So up to 6 games, between 5 and 6 games in that Carnival. Basically, it would give recruiters a true understanding on who are the best players and who are the best draft prospects. And basically, the 6 teams will be Western Australia, South Australia, Melbourne, Vic Country, which will also include Tassie, New South Wales, which will also include ACT, and Queensland, which will also include the Northern Territory. Now, if that gets too costly, then I do have an option 2, and that is basically a NAB League competition involving the 18 teams that are in it at the moment. But instead of teams like the Sydney Swans, Northern Territory and Gold Coast playing just 5 games, while the other play about 15, all 18 teams play each other once. That's the option 2. Now, what you might have noticed in both proposals is there's no academy clubs. Now, I know what you're thinking about the second option. What about Sydney Academy, Gold Coast Academy? Well, if they were to go with that second option and scrap the academies, I think it should... Sydney Swans is just like a representative team, but the players in Sydney, they can be free to be drafted by whoever, for example. It's kind of just like Sydney Swans would be equal to Calder Cannons, for example, in option 2. But anyway, I want the academies to be scrapped. Why? Because it ruins the draft. What I mean is, like, let's take Yamara Ugle-Hagan, who at this rate is probably going to be the number 1 draft pick for the 2020 draft, okay? Who is going to have the number 1 draft pick? Gold Coast, okay? Most likely anyone, unless they have a surprisingly good season. But it's going to most likely be Gold Coast. What team will be Amara Ugle-Hagan be going to? Western Bulldogs. You know why? Because he is part of the Western Bulldogs Academy. So that means the Bulldogs can place their bid, and then they can get him. Now, it's good for Hagan because I think he's a Bulldog supporter. But is it good for Gold Coast? No, it's not. They've just lost the most talented player in the 2020 draft pool. So I think to stop teams from taking advantage of such players, and for teams that get awarded with that draft pick, or not awarded, but the team that has the rightful claim for that draft pick, so for example, Gold Coast, they are the rightful owners of pick number 1, they should be able to pick Hagan. It shouldn't be the Bulldogs placing a claim on him. So I think the academy should be scrapped. And I know what you're saying, it was brought in to help the New South Wales and Queensland clubs. That's why I brought forward that new 8-team competition option. Because it's like the top tier, it's a new top tier competition that is endorsed by the AFL. Whether it's too costly, that's the argument, so you might have to go to option 2 for now, but in the future, I would like to see something like that. And in turn, you could actually have a high-quality state league, second-tier league later on in the future. Now, everyone's favourite topic, the reserves competition. First, let me get to that infamous South Fremantle-East Fremantle trade. Now, I'm a West Australian, and I know the importance, the rivalry between those two clubs. Alright? But let's face it, the history of the waffle is dying down. It's becoming more as a development league rather than a traditional top-tier league like it used to be. It's not a top-tier league anymore. In fact, it's only second tier, and it's a feeder competition to the AFL. And I think 2 teams need to merge to allow the Fremantle Dockers to join. Now, if South Fremantle and East Fremantle were not to merge, and Fremantle were to join in, that's 3 teams in Fremantle. That is too many teams in Fremantle. I think 2 in Freo is enough, and that's why I'm calling South Fremantle and East Fremantle to merge. The only other option is for South Fremantle to be assumed by the Fremantle Dockers, similar with Port Adelaide, the situation over there. That's the other option. But yeah, I'd be looking at the 2 teams merging, just so there's 2 teams in the Freo region for the second tier competition and just the 1 for the Under-19s competition. The other change I would make to the waffle, as I said earlier, is rename West Perth to Joondalup, because let's face it, they play in Joondalup, so yeah, I'll just rename them to Joondalup. As for the SANFL, I wouldn't really make any changes apart from probably renaming Woodville West Torrens. That's a bit of a mouthful, really. Just make it one name, not two. I know merger between Woodville West Torrens, but I don't know. I don't know. It's just my opinion. Now, let's get to the VFL and the NEAFL. Surely, the NEAFL needs to go. It has been a disaster from the start. The quality has been low. I mean, Brisbane went undefeated, okay? Sydney have been in the top two pretty much their entire existence in the NEAFL. And GWS, they've basically made finals nearly every year. The only exception being Gold Coast, but that's Gold Coast, whatever. They're off to the side. They're an exception. None of the other teams really serve any purpose apart from potentially Southport. But the other teams are just filler clubs and they're a pile of garbage, really. As for the VFL, there is only two really successful standalone clubs. That's Port Melbourne and Williamstown, and I think they should be considering to field teams in the MFL or even the NAB League. Okay, if you wonder what the MFL was, that was my proposal. But anyway, as for the other clubs, Werribee, Coburg and Frankston and North Ballarat, they've all got problems. Werribee is probably the best off of the four. They're inconsistent at best. But Coburg has been at the bottom for almost all their existence in the last 20 years. Frankston have already pulled out of the competition once in 2017, and North Ballarat, where are they? Are they even in the competition anymore? Like, I haven't seen them since 2018. And there's, like, no talk on whether they actually have exited the competition, whether they're coming back. So we don't know about North Ballarat. For all I know, they could be out. Preston just got kicked out of the competition after their divorce with Carlton. And I think Casey and Sandringham will also struggle to survive if they break up with St Kilda and Melbourne. And Frankston, I think, are gone as well. I think they're going to demise. They're pretty much on the brink of extinction. North Ballarat, don't ask me where the hell they are. Okay, so basically, what I think should happen is they should just stick to 10 standalone... Oh, yeah, I forgot about Box Hill. Yeah, they'll probably demise if they break up with Hawthorn. Now, there has been a bit of a talk about a national reserves competition, but it'd be too high cost if you involves WA and South Australia in it. So I think the best way to go is for just the Victorian teams, the two New South Wales clubs and the two Queensland clubs to field their own reserve sides in their own competition. That would make up a 14-team competition. Add Tassie because they're supposed to join the VFL in 2021. And I think they're vital. They're a vital market for the AFL in years to come. So I think at least they should start to set up in this reserves competition. That makes a 15-team competition. You need an even amount of teams. So we'll add an 11th Victorian team, which is not for the AFL. It is purely a reserves team. All right, making that clear. That'll be the Eastern Broncos. Because I noticed that none of the 10 AFL clubs actually service the Dandenong, KC, Frankston area. And that actually has about more than 500,000 people living in that area. Yeah. And I would have said a merger between Frankston and KC, but let's face it, they'll be poor anyway. So might as well start from scratch and we'll do the Eastern Broncos as... So them and Tassie will be standalone sides to start off with having no links to any AFL clubs. So, I hope you liked the video. What do you think about some of my proposals to the second tier and development competitions? And what about the changes to the draft that I've proposed? Comment what you think down below about those changes, and also comment what other changes should the AFL make. I know they've been talking about list sizes, and I think that might not be a bad idea, actually, to be honest with you. I would like that. I wouldn't like it, but I think it's necessary, is what I'm saying. But yeah, there's some changes going around. And I think a reduction to the coaching panel is also necessary. Again, not nice, but it's kind of necessary given that it's a bit crowded right now and given that they're a bit short of money, the teams. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Please give it a thumbs up. Please check out some of my other videos. And I promise I'll make a video next week, alright? I'll see you later. Bye.